Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. More teams locked in for the World Championship. Sentinels officially the #1 seed from their group going into the Americas playoffs. But what's happened in the Pacific yesterday? RRQ making a run. That means Gen.G eliminated from World Championship contention. The Korean Slayers are seriously here to play. And DRX might be not long for this world either. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Let's dive right in. Chronicle was 23 yesterday. He says this time it's not his birthday at Champs, which he's pretty happy with. No stress yet, but as we know, Fnatic will be there at the World Championship. They have officially qualified. Thought this was kind of cool as well from Zyphov. So we know that he spent some time on Team Vitality. And, well, eventually he was off Team Vitality, but now he's playing for Job Life. I think he's technically still there on Vitality. He's just not playing in a, obviously, starting capacity. But he's been playing challenges, and they won the France Split 3. So, good result for him, and as a result, that puts them in a good position potentially for Ascension. So we'll see, but it's kind of interesting just to see Zyphov, as Durka says, congrats, with Vitality struggling on the one side, whether there's something else to be said about the other side of things. But let's talk about the Pacific, because this was a cataclysmic result in that region yesterday, with RRQ taking down DRX in a 2-0 fashion. So RRQ were a great team, obviously in Stage 1, we know that the #1 seed, they turned up to Toronto and disappeared. So I think the general feeling was, oh, well, you know, that's all we're getting from them. If you looked at their record, it was like, oh, were they kind of Teho merchants? Were some of the teams that they were playing at the time just not very good? And these are things that you could argue, because some of those teams were going through struggles. But when it's mattered towards the end of the season, they've turned it back on. And honestly, it was so impressive that their whole team played well here. It wasn't like, oh, Jemkins carried them, oh, Monyets carried them. Like, no, it was the whole whole team of guys, including Crazy Guy, came to play. And Crazy Guy, what a great story, right? Like, I know he's controversial because of the drama with Bleed, the drama with Ye, and all this. But to be fair to the guy, he's now there at the World Championship. So RRQ, they 13-7'd DRX and Icebox. They call themselves the Korean Slayers for a reason. They 13-9'd them on DRX's pick on the Corrode. And, you know, they had a solid defensive half, but nothing spectacular. And then they just ran away with the attacking side, which is pretty rare to see on Corrode. But RRQ got the job done. 2-0 against DRX. And the ramifications of this were huge. It's funny to think about RRQ as a team, because we just know that they love beating Gen.G. They did it again to knock them out of the tournament. And then beating DRX was the decider to knock Gen.G out of Champions. I said it yesterday, there were like 4 results that needed to go Gen.G's way for them to make it, based on championship points. And all of those results were, let's say, favoured to happen. And some of them have happened. But it's pretty unlikely that all 4 results are going to go Gen.G's way. And this result didn't. RRQ take down DRX, and that means Gen.G will not make it to the World Championship. Based on the championship points, we'll see it in a second. So, pretty insane, right, for the team that's done so well, obviously, in the last season or so, for that Korean representation at the World Championship. All of a sudden, it's the Southeast Asian region which is taking over the Pacific as opposed to the Korean players, and, well, this is where it leaves. So, there are 3 representatives for sure. T1 are kind of Korea's potentially last hope, although DRX could still make it. We'll see how that works in a second. So, if Talon beat PaperX, which they haven't, we'll see in a second, then Talon qualify. But if Talon lose, then they can still win in the lower final, and if they do make it through, then they will qualify instead. So we'll see how this looks from a championship points perspective here in a second. It's absolutely sensational cinema that it comes down to DRX versus Talon. And as we know, DRX's coach and Talon's coach, they got a bit of drama going on over there. So it doesn't get much better than this. Now, Lakia, who, as I say, was signed recently to Gen.G, they didn't play him, and now he's not playing. So Lakia's like, well, yep, that was great. I'll see you back next year, I guess, because he didn't really get an opportunity. But as Crazy Guy says from RRQ, finally, after so many years, I can play at Champions. It was a long way. I'll see you in Paris. So great story, I thought, from a few angles. And that leaves these as the Pacific qualifiers. PaperX have made it. RRQ have made it. T1 have made it. And Talon or DRX will be there as well. And, well, we'll see how that transpires in a second. This was Frost, because of course he was watching for the sidelines, enjoying the show. we know that he's got that big beef with Tomy, the coach of DRX, and as this was all unfolding, seeing Gen.G eliminated, seeing DRX losing to RRQ, maybe Frost was thinking, that we're going to make it, right? We're going to be there at Champions. But it's far from guaranteed because, as he says in the replies, if we lose, they are still in. I'm just enjoying the show. And they have lost at the first time of asking. They played Paper X today in the upper bracket, and Paper X just handled business. The Haven was close, 13-11, and after that, it went to their pick and they won it 13-7 on the bind. So it was a competitive affair from Talon. They tried their best. It wasn't to be in the end. If they'd have won the Haven, obviously Paper X had a big end to their attacking side. It could have been a very different story. But in the end, it was Paper X advancing to the Grand Finals. They don't need to be in the Grand Finals. They were making it anyway on championship points, but they are going to be there. So Paper X have made it, T1 have made it, RRQ have made it. So DRX are at 12 points. And Talon are at 11. So Gen.G are at 12, but they've already been eliminated because they're already out of the playoffs. So they cannot overtake DRX right now. The team that could would be Talon, but Talon will only manage that if they make it to the Grand Finals. So if Talon make it to finals, then they qualify because they made the finals. And as a result, that will shift DRX down. So if Talon win, then they will qualify, and to do so, they will have to beat either T1 or RRQ. So DRX are eliminated in, guess the position DRX are eliminated? It was top 6. It was top 6. They just love it. But so T1 and RRQ, they will face off against each other. It's actually coming up right about now, and then in several days' time, so Talon will have a couple of weeks to prepare for that game. And, well, we'll see if they can win it, because if they do, they make it to Champions. If they don't, they would have loved to win today to be like, okay, we locked it in, but instead there's 2 more weeks for DRX to wonder whether they're going to make it to Champions or not, which is kind of crazy actually, right? The DRX will have to prepare as if they're going to qualify, but they might not qualify after all. Let's talk about the Americas. Furia played Evil Geniuses. Yeah, Furia played again, so you know what that means. If they play, they lose, and they lost. 13-6, 13-9. Could have been worse, I guess. Could have been worse. But yeah, GG's, Evil Geniuses take at least some momentum going into the playoffs. We'll have a look at how things go in a second. The other game, which was actually far more compelling, was 2G versus Sentinels. And 2G, this team, they brought in Spike. They started to play a lot better. I think as a team, they've made some good progress. And from where they were, of course, as a guest team coming up from Ascension, what they've done this season has not been great by any means, but they've at least tried, right? Like, compared to the other Brazilian teams, it actually feels like 2G have given it a good go. We know that in scrims, they've been somewhat more competitive recently than they were towards the start of the year. This was Zellsis, by the way, with a 2G camo on. So this series didn't really matter for Sentinels. If they'd have lost this series, then 2G would have made it to the playoffs. And if they made the playoffs, then at least they get a chance to fight in Ascension, right? But Sentinels weren't really about that. They were just like, well, look, if 2G qualify fair and square, then they qualify fair and square. If they don't, then they don't. It is what it is. But yeah, we saw the 2G bundle come out. I just thought it was kind of a nice touch, really, because as we said, it didn't matter that much this series for Sentinels. They were always going to be qualifying right at the top of that group. And if Sentinels had a loss, then there was a world where 2G took the spot over Evil Geniuses for that final playoff spot. And that would have been, you know, really big for 2G because, as I say, if they made it through to the playoffs, then they get a chance to fight in Ascension. So the way that it works is because G2 have made it to Champions, they're guaranteed coming back next year, despite the fact that there's still a guest team technically in this league because of the guards, Ascension, G2, all that kind of good stuff. So as a result, the other team either gets relegated entirely or they get to fight in Ascension. The answer is they're going to get relegated entirely, which means that 2G will not be in the league next season. It will be the winner of Ascension that is in the league next season, with G2 staying. So only one team ascends. Sometimes it could be 2, potentially. In other regions, it could be 2 teams ascends if both get relegated. But obviously, G2 aren't going anywhere. So Sin get the 2-0 win, or the 2-1 win. It was actually, it was well fought. I mean, 2G actually won the Sunset 13-9. Obviously a map that you'd expect Sentinels to be winning, but it was actually 2G's pick. They've been grinding hard on it, clearly. But then after that, the Lotus was a one-way traffic, and then the Haven was as well. So Sin handled business when it mattered towards the end of the series. they could have given them the win, but they elected not to do so, and they achieved perfection. It makes sense, right? Sentinels, at the end of the day, this is how you've got to be. You've got to be ruthless as a team. You can't have a nice streak in you or whatever. You've got to just keep winning, keep plowing ahead the series, and, well, go flawless during the stage, take that momentum into the playoffs. Feel bad for 2G, but, you know, did they deserve to stay? You know, like, I think it would be nice to at least see them give it a go at Ascension, but I understand why Riot haven't done it that way. As they say, though, this is not a goodbye. Dear Americas, thank you, we'll be back, is the implication. I think 2G as an organisation as well, even outside of Valorant, have started to do some decent stuff. So they're in a spot where them coming back and winning Ascension again or something is not unreasonable. Maybe they could even get a partnership spot in a couple of years if Furia got kicked out or something. Maybe not entirely impossible, but 2-9 this season. They didn't make it in the end. Sentinels made it. And as Zellsis says, I tried to give it to them, but the team didn't agree. That team is amazing. They're great people. Hope, wishing them the best in the future. And Sassy wasn't very happy about it. But we got some nice replies here from a number of the 2G guys. I thought it was kind of nice to see this interaction. And even as Kaplan says, buy the bundle. Went back and looked, by my count, we've scrimmed these guys 39 times since the start of the season. They're a hard-working squad, and they're all deserving of a good future. So, yeah, it was nice to see the positivity, really, between these two teams. But G2, they're locked in. They ain't going anywhere. And as Josh RT says, we secured our long-term place in the league. Proud of us for making it happen. Their record so far over the last 2 years, 43-18 in matches, 31-10 in the Americas, 12-8 internationally. And we'll see. G2 say our era's only just begun. They've locked in their spot for 2026 because they've made it to the World Championship, and as a result, they will not be going anywhere. So, very much interested to your thoughts in the comments. This is how it looks then in the group. So, Sentinels, they topped it up at 5-0. Furia 0-5, 2G were 1-4 in the end, so they bomb out and don't make it to the playoffs. EG do in the end make it through, and we have the G2 Cloud9 battle for the second seed. That's going on tonight. The other game is MIBR versus Loud. Unfortunately, both of those teams lost to Crew, so that game doesn't really matter. But yeah, G2 versus Cloud9 is at least going to be pretty interesting to close out the season of the Americas. So very much interested to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.